with you. We've had quite a journey this summer. As you can see, this is a beautiful transformation of our gymnasium here at the middle school. And as we finish this evening, we want to have a tour of the building for anyone that would like to have that has not had an opportunity. Very happy to have you here, and we're going to be looking forward from what we've done at this point and where we want to go forward with our facilities. Just kind of getting started. And so we've got 3 areas we keep talking about. We're planning a master facility plan. We're investing in our buildings, and a lot of our permanent improvement dollars have been an instrumental part of that, and we're seeing some great things across the district. And we're preserving. That's why when we are investing in our buildings, such as the middle school, you can see the transformation. I do love the piece that is at the front of our building right now with the older windows and the newer windows. And it's interesting, brick is brick, but when you look at the difference it makes, and then the difference in the energy efficiency and just the feel of the building, it's amazing. So that's part of our preservation, and certainly as we look forward at our master facility plan, we have that element of preservation in that as well as we look forward to new construction. So we have 3 portions this evening. We're definitely going to be looking at enhancements, that's those renovations and all those improvements we're doing across the district and how that's being funded. And then we're going to really talk about really looking at a pre-K through 5 plan and looking at what that would look like, and some aspects including our state potential funding, as well as just the layout of that. Looking for your input. This evening there will be questions that will be intermixed as we talk. So we're not looking so much, we'll have time at the end for questions and answers, but particularly because we're having our tour at the end, as we're talking about particular topics, if you have an interjection, a comment, a thought, something that we should be considering that maybe we haven't or we're not expressing that at this time, or if you have a question, we would like to have that. And we are going to wrap up then with our tour. So I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Gary Pfister, our Director of Services. He's done a fantastic job and is extremely involved with all the renovations and all the maintenance and looking forward in our buildings. And he's at the helm.
Thanks, Dr. Pell. Okay, hopefully everybody can hear me fine. I'm not a very big group, so I'd rather not use the microphone. Welcome, thank you for coming. Hopefully you were part of our programs last spring as well, where we did several of these engagements, where we led into the projects we did this summer, and we also talked about potential bond issues next year as well. We've tried to be very transparent about where we're going with our district, with our facilities, where we've been from 4, 5, 10 years ago, 3 years ago, to where we need to go. So hopefully tonight we can cover some of this as we go. We want to start out just kind of highlighting the work that has been done since basically June 1st up through today. So first of all, on LT Ball, you can see on the left side we have a completed list, and on the right side an in-process list. One thing to keep in mind, while the lists do seem kind of equivalent in size, the list on the left encompasses about 90% of the work. The list on the right is that final 10%, those punch list items, some of those other smaller items that just take a while to get through to close out a project. So, at LT Ball, we took out the old chiller, which was a 1974 Westinghouse unit, and replaced it with a 2018 Carrier unit. The old one sat inside the mechanical room. The new one now sits outside of LT Ball. It is enclosed by a wood fence that was just completed this past weekend as well. New boilers. We took out the old boiler. We replaced it with 2 separate boilers, kind of a lead lag system. So we always have a backup in place in case one would go out. New domestic hot water tanks, high efficient hot water tanks. Brand new fire alarm system. This building got one as well. Kind of the nerdy side of me, probably my favorite part of the whole project was the fire alarms. They are an audible fire system along with strobes that flash. It was kind of cool when we did all the testing, and you could hear wherever you were in that building, you know, may I have your attention please, the fire alarm has been pulled, please find your nearest exit. No matter where you stood, you heard it, and no matter where you stood, you saw 2 strobes flashing. So it was nice to know that we finally had these two buildings up to code with our fire alarms. In addition, they're completely monitored. These buildings have not been monitored by a monitoring system, so alarm goes off, 911 is now contacted. Very, very excited about those systems. At LT Ball, we did the gym lights with a new LED system. The original plan when we went into this project last spring was to do all of LT Ball with new LED lights. As we got into it, and as we were talking about potential upcoming bond issues, we backed off of doing the entire building because we knew there was going to be a lot of work that had to happen above the ceiling once we get into the new renovation project. So we didn't want to take and dump a lot of money into lights, knowing that ceiling was all going to have to come down to put in new ductwork, new ceiling grid, and kind of waste that money on the lights. So we took the gym, where we knew the gym was going to stay as is, and replaced those lights. We had actually replaced all of the bulbs about 2 years ago, and by the time we got the new fixtures in, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we were down to 18-foot candles worth of light, so almost as dark as what that back half of the gym was. We finished up and we're at about 45-foot candles, so it's a huge difference in that gym right now. Go back one. Roof work. We had 23,000 square feet of roof that was not under a membrane, so we did a complete tear off of that 23,000 square feet and finished that out. So all of LT Ball is now completely under a membrane roof. We still need to finish the edging around the outside. So you look at LT, you'll see that you can see the white membrane hanging over. That edging still needs to get done. I've been told maybe this week. The air handlers sit in the mechanical room above the cafeteria area. We did not replace them, but we did a complete overhaul of those. Replaced the bearings, replaced the motors, replaced the sheaths, the belt. Everything was replaced on those. So those are completely, not brand new as far as purchase-wise, but as far as the guts go to it, pretty much a new air handler system. We added additional exterior lights. When you leave tonight, you'll be able to see those if you've not been in the parking lot at night over the past few weeks. We added 8 pole lights along the sidewalk between LT and the middle school, at the top of the parking lot, and then also between LT and the middle school. And we also added new exterior lights on the building. It really lights up the whole area at night, provides for a much more secure and safe environment for our teachers and students when they're leaving at the end of the day, or after conferences or after athletic events. So make sure you take a look at that when you do leave tonight. Then we also took the music room risers and removed them. They were built in when the building was built back in '74. That used to be at junior high school. It was used as a band room. As a former band director, you kind of like to have your kids on risers, your different instruments. But now it's a 4th and 5th grade building. It just made more sense to have a flat room, flat floor, a lot more versatile. The teachers can do a little bit more movement, dancing, different game type stuff in that music room now. So those are all completely done. On the right-hand side, door access controls. We are putting a fob system in that building. We're in the process of that, probably about 3 to 4 weeks away from having those fobs working. HVAC access controls, we actually finished those today. So we now have complete HVAC access controls of that building where we can control the operation of the air or the heat by schedule, whether it's just during the school day, when we have special events, we can schedule special events in there. So we're not running the air or the heat or the air handlers 24 hours a day. Right now they basically run while we're occupied, and that's about it. New doors, we're installing new doors at LT Ball. That's in process this week and last week, should be done next week. We're replacing all of the doors at LT, exterior doors, except the 2 doors on that end of the building that face this building. And you'll see why we chose not to do those now as we move further into this. Roof edging, I mentioned that. Blast film. We are putting blast film on all of our doors throughout the district. What blast film is, it's a 3M product. You put it on the interior of your windows, and if somebody tries to shoot their way in, break their way in, pound their way into your school, It won't prevent them from getting in, but it's going to take them about 5 to 10 minutes to get through that door. We have a video link we'll put up on our website where you can click on it, where they have demonstration of how this works. So while it's not a bulletproof system, it certainly is going to give our staff in the buildings that if somebody would unfortunately be trying to get into our building, shooting it using a baseball bat, they're going to have enough time and enough notice to put our procedures in place. Put us on lockdown, evacuate, or whatever we need to do. So that blast film is going on all of our exterior doors on all of our buildings throughout the district. As you can imagine, that film is a highly sought after product right now. So, kind of backward. We thought we'd have it up by now. Now we're being told it's not going to arrive on site till the 22nd of October. The goal is to have it done over by the end of Thanksgiving break. So over the next 5 weeks, we should see that go up. Then we're also putting additional security cameras in the building. We're replacing all the network switches, along with upgrading the Wi-Fi in that building. Got some pictures to show as well. This is from LT Ball. So on the left-hand side, top left, that is just a picture of all of the ceiling strobes that went in for the new fire alarm system. Right-hand side, top, are the new boilers. Right below that are the domestic hot water tanks. And then bottom left is the new chiller that they had to crane in and lift up over what was out there then, which was the cooling tank for the old chiller system. And then top left are a nighttime shot looking from this building towards LT Ball of the new lights and how it lights it up there. Top right is the fence going in around the new chiller. Bottom left is the new pumps along with the new boilers in the mechanical room. And then bottom right is the music room at LT Ball in process of having the risers ripped out. This building. LT Ball is more of a mechanical switch out. Some stuff you can see, but more of it was a mechanical, making sure the systems are good for another 25, 30 years. This building got that as well, but as Greta was saying, the windows out front, the air conditioning throughout the building, this one you can kind of see and feel a little bit more than what you could at LT Ball. So we started out by replacing the switchgear. The switchgear that was here was the current from 1964. If you had seen it before it got pulled out, it was actually part of it was either on fire or part of a fire somewhere in its life because it was all charred on one side of it. So that came out after we opened up a hole in the wall, put a new switchgear in. The one that was in here was a 2,000 amp system. We put in a 4,000 amp system, which would allow this building to grow if necessary. New VRF HVAC system. So this building now has wall-to-wall AC wherever you go in this building when it's warm, and that same system is heating this building. I think when we spoke to this middle school staff back in the springtime and said, you're going to get AC in your rooms, they're like, yeah, you're going to put an air conditioner in. So what? It was more than that. If you were in this building over the summer, they had every single inch of ceiling tile down, running ductwork, running line sets. I think at one point the lead plumber said he had already put in 9,000 linear feet of copper. They had only spec'd out 8, and at that point he figured he had another 2,000 linear feet to go. So they put a lot of work and a lot of money up in these ceilings. The conduits looks like racetracks up above the ceiling. There was a time, a week before school started, where I was having night sweats and not sleeping at night thinking, we're not going to be able to open. Every part of the ceiling was still open. We had dust, dirt, lifts, ladders, wires hanging out of the ceiling everywhere. So there was some very nights without sleep, a lot of swearing, a lot of cursing, thinking, oh my God, what are we doing? How am I going to tell Greta we're not going to be able to open? So it came together. The kids got here on Wednesday the 22nd, I believe it was, and we had all the air running in the building with the exception of that side, and by Friday, the entire building had AC in it, which was our goal from the get-go. The mechanical crew from Applied Mechanical Systems was working 60 to 80 hours a week from about the end of July till we opened up to get us there. It was exciting. It's a good feel when you walk into this building. It feels like a new building when you come in. I could go on forever with that, but I'll keep going so we can get through this. This gymnasium, we put a rooftop AC unit on. It's going to heat and cool it. You can see the ductwork up above there. New fire alarm system, just like LT Ball's. We did put a new master clock system in this building as well. Prior to that, you could go in any room right next toward each other or down the hall. Every single room was a different time. We're now synced completely. One of the clocks is up there behind the backboard. You'll see them in the hallways as you walk through as well. And I believe the system that was in here was the original as well. I'm not sure how long it had not worked. We did do complete LED lighting retrofits throughout this entire building. Every single light fixture has been touched in this building. Complete retrofit system. Additional exterior lights, like I explained with LT Ball. This building had 28,000 square feet of roof that needed to be repaired. The area over the locker rooms, we did a complete tear off. And as we were doing that, we ran into a huge electrical issue when that locker room was built. They had taken all the electric for the locker room, run it up onto the roof, and put it in conduits. So as the roofers were scraping off the old roof, they started seeing these sparks flying at them. Couldn't figure out what was going on. Brought the electrical contractor up. They called me up and said, this has to go. We can't do this. It doesn't meet code. We don't think it ever met code. So we got stuck with I don't want to call it a changeover, but one of those things we were doing a renovation project and something goes wrong that you weren't planning on. And so we had about a $30,000 hit to the budget so that we could redo all the electric for the locker room. But it's done. It's in place. This building is good to go now throughout electrically. All the exterior doors have been replaced. We still have a couple openers we got to get set up on the back door that aren't in yet. But all the doors have been replaced. All the windows have been replaced. Curtain walls, we're in the process of replacing the curtain walls. Those are the ones in the front, and also do the art room in the cafeteria. They've been doing 2 curtain walls a week. When the time they leave this week, they'll have 7 done across the front. There's 11, so we got 2 more weeks in the front, and then another week for the art room and the cafeteria. So we have about 3 more weeks of window work, and that will be completely done. And then our gym floor. This was completely refinished this summer as well. Last time it was refinished, I think it was the year 2000. So it's had a lot of use, a lot of PE classes, a lot of games, a lot of other events. It just got to a point where we were going to have to do some maintenance to it. And so we thought, let's get a price if we can get it repainted, resanded down completely, and get another 25 years out of it. This is the original gym floor from 1964. From what I've been told, when this building opened up, the gym used to go this direction. Thus, that's why your gym slats go that direction. Not sure when they changed it, but most gym floors, the boards run the same way the court does. So again, the 1964 floor, and you look at it and you think, wow, this looks pretty nice. So we're pleased with how this turned out. In process, as I said, the curtain walls, we're replacing the PA system as well. That was 25 years old or so. That work has not started. We're waiting for the PA system to come in. The blast film, door access controls, same as LT Ball. HVAC access controls, we currently do not have those for this building. I'm being told a couple weeks still. So right now the teachers have the controls in their room and they're responsible for keeping their room at the settings they like. Roof edging has to be completed like LT Ball. Wall panels above the locker rooms. So if you look at the gym walls outside above the locker rooms, we are putting a metal panel around that section because a lot of our leaks come in where that metal panel hits the roof. And it's really difficult to seal off. And so the roofer we went through has the system they use that puts a very sharp looking metal panel all the way across that will prevent those leaks from coming in anymore. That is about 4 weeks away, I was told last week. We are looking at doing replacement of interior classroom doors. We have some money left in the budget since we didn't do all of the lighting work and didn't replace all of the doors over there. So we are looking at seeing how many classroom doors we can get replaced as well. Additional security cameras, replacement of network switches, and upgrade of Wi-Fi. Some pictures. There's the gym where we're sitting. On the upper right, those are the condensing units. There are 21 of those across the roof, all the way around the building. Some are twin like those are, some are single. Those units provide the cooling and the heating for the building. We are no longer connected to a boiler system. There was a boiler system that is still in the bus garage. We disconnected from that, and now we're heating and cooling with the VRF system. Bottom left, you can see the first window that went in and how different that looks compared to the old windows. That's in our courtyard. And then bottom right is a picture where they were finishing the last window on the bottom after the other ones had been put in. I think that's pretty cool looking. A couple more pictures. The picture on the left should have been in the in process column. That's called a dedicated outdoor air system, a DOAS unit. There are 3 of those that just got placed on the roof about a week and a half ago. They are not working at this point in time. They bring in outside air, the fresh air, to make sure our CO2 levels stay low. They will also act as the exhaust system for the restrooms and for the locker rooms. If you've been in a middle school and you go into the restrooms, there's usually just a stench with it. So this will just help to keep those odors down. Upper right picture, that's just one of the pictures I have of the ceilings being ripped apart, line sets hanging out, duct work in place. And that may have been taken like 5 days before school started, one of those pictures. Bottom left, when we put in the new switchgear, we also replaced all of the electric from the transformer to the switchgear, along with all the conduits, and added additional empty conduits as well, so that if we have to grow, there's room that we can run more electric from the transformer into the switchgear. So that was all replaced right there. We were going to replace the transformer, and we spent a lot of time with energy optimizers and the city talking about that, and we actually had a transformer on order. And the engineer came back, showed us what our load was going to be for this building, and the city guy sat down and said, "You don't need a new transformer. This one's fine. It's going to last you for a long time. Don't spend the money on it. We'll just keep using this one." So the city was a very, very nice partner in this whole project, making sure we got exactly what we needed and not buying something we didn't need. So we're appreciative of the city in this whole project. Bottom right-hand corner is just a picture of a curtain wall being opened up, where they're getting ready to put the frame up and then start putting in the replacement panels and windows. Okay, any questions so far of anything I went over? Comments, concerns, issues? Don't know if any of you have kids that go to this building, but hopefully you're hearing good things from them when they come home, especially when it was so warm this fall. It was a very warm fall. I guess a side note to go with the AC. So I also oversee the food service department, and we were having our managers meeting last week, and we were looking at our numbers of number of kids that are buying. Well, in this building, we have on average, about 40 to 45 more kids a day buying their lunch. And we track this every single year, so I've been tracking it since 2010, and since 2010, our number's always been very similar. So I said, so what's different? You know, we're following the same guidelines, menus haven't changed that much. Why are we getting so many more kids buying their lunch? And right away, the manager said, I think it's because of the AC. The kids come in from class, they're not dripping with sweat, they're just not hanging off their seat. They're coming in refreshed, they're hungry, they're ready to eat, and so they're just participating more. So I had never even given that a thought, but I thought, hey, that's awesome. That's helping our participation numbers. It's helping our food service program get more revenue going in. Plus, our cooks cook great meals. It might be healthy, which a lot of kids might not always like, but they follow the guidelines with the sodium, the whole grains, and everything like that, and the kids are buying it, and they're continuing to buy it every day. So it wasn't just a one-week blip. It's from the beginning of the year to now. I check it almost every day, and the growth is there. So we're excited about that. Okay, so how is this project funded? The total project cost, all in, was $4.8 million. The board financed it with a 20-year loan. It's a 3.74% interest rate. As you look at where interest rates are right now, that's a pretty good interest rate, and where interest rates are going. So we're pleased with that interest rate. So we're making payments out of our permanent improvement fund each year for the next 20 years to pay for these improvements. Payments are approximately $340,000 per year. We bring in approximately anywhere from $680,000 to $700,000 a year on our PI levy. So after the payment comes out, we're still left with half of our PI levy to continue buying school buses, buying technology items, doing work that comes up throughout the year. Now with replacing all the HVAC here and there, a lot of our major needs have been taken care of. So we're not as worried about a major need happening in these two buildings. That being said, we still carry about a $200,000 to $300,000 carryover each year in a permanent improvement fund. So while we're bringing in $680,000 to $700,000, we think it's important to keep $200,000 to $300,000 sitting there for something that happens. Say, God forbid, at 14 years old, one of the chillers at the high school goes out. We don't have to take out a loan to fix it. We're going to have the cash on hand to do it. Now, those chillers up there should last another 10 years at least. But you just never know. So we do try to make sure we have a healthy cash balance there. And so we try not to spend all of that budget every year as well. It's just in case those emergencies do arise. 2 years ago, spring of 16, we had a pre-K through 3 bond issue on the ballot. Got destroyed. We talked about that last spring. We heard a lot of, we know you need a K3, but what are you going to do with 4-8? We said, we understand that. We know we have to do 4-8, but we never told you what we were going to do with 4-8. To be perfectly honest, we weren't sure either. We just knew 4-8 had to have something happening to it, but we wanted to get the K3 built, as we still do. Now that we've attacked LT Ball, now that we have attacked this building, we can say in our K-12 master plan, hey, 4-8's been addressed. And we addressed it without going back to the voters asking for more additional tax dollars. We did it with the tax dollars that you guys have already blessed us with, that we're fortunate to have, by having good leadership in the treasurer's office saying, hey, if we pay for this out of this fund, we can extend the life of our PI fund over here. So there's been a lot of communication, a lot of dialogue of saying, how can we attack 4-8 in our K-12 master plan without having to raise anybody's taxes? And we feel we've done that. We feel this building will last 25 to 30 years, and with proper maintenance on a regular basis, I think it can go 30, 35, 40, who knows, maybe 50. You just don't know. As long as it's taken care of properly on a yearly basis, there's a lot of life in this building. The bones in this building are very good. So we're pleased about that.
Gary, a question?
Yes, sir.
Can I interrupt you?
Yes.
So relative to the money you're taking out of the PI fund to pay for these upgrades, do you have any assessment off the top of your head of savings? So you've got LED lights, you're going to draw less power. You're adding air conditioning, that's going to be more electric.
Sure.
Do you know which of those columns is going to go up and down? And is this going to be net zero across?
It won't be net zero. I'm pretty confident we're going to be paying a little bit more in electric for this building. We got our first electric bill since the AC was started, came in and came across my desk September 16th, 17th, something like that. The year prior, that same year, same billing month, a year prior, we spent, I think it was $5,500 on electric for this building. No AC except for the back. This year, same month with AC running, and it was running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, our bill was a little over $8,000 for the month. 100,000 square foot building, so yeah, we are going to pay more for electric. We do know that.
For electric, will you gain any efficiency in heating with all
We
this?
will. We will. We
So-
started up the boilers yesterday morning, this morning, one of these past mornings. And again, this building's been removed from the boilers plant, so now that boiler plant that ran this building is just running Nevin Coppic. So it runs both buildings. I was talking to the maintenance supervisor today. He said, Gary, I keep going in there and the boiler's not running. I'm looking around saying, is it on? What's going on? He said, we've never been able to heat this building without both of those boilers firing at full blast.
So would you be able to guess that there might be a district-wide utility savings, perhaps not necessarily this building or one building at a time, but if you look at the totality of this whole site, might it be at least neutral and nothing going higher?
I'd have to do more study on it, to be perfectly honest with you.
But nothing glaringly obvious where you expected your utilities to go up 20-30%. You expect it to be substantially equivalent, I'll say.
I'm not going to say equivalent. No, I won't go there. I think we're going to pay a little bit more still.
All right, but
For
we are
electric.
getting more for that money, and
A lot more.
that's budgeted. That's
Yes.
not PI dollars.
No,
That's-
that is general fund operating dollars, and that has been budgeted. When Dave, the treasurer, and I sat down and did our budgets for utilities, we said, what do we do in this building? And at that point, it was June and July, and we had no clue. So we just doubled what we had spent before in this building for electric. And I don't think we're even going to come close to that amount. So very pleased with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay, let's move on. Just a couple quick slides. I'm not sure which teacher in this building did it, but their kids did some sort of a writing assignment. Some of them chose to write on this about what they're feeling in this building. I think it's kind of powerful. A lot of times as adults, we don't even think to listen to the kids, ask the kids their thoughts. So it's kind of cool to just read through what they're thinking. We're very grateful for the improvements. It's just neat things that our kids can sit down and put together. Now, I like this sentence. This is important because it represents that our community cares about the students and the environment that they learn. It's so important, so true. Which is why we have to address pre-K 3. It was a need 3 years ago. It was a need 10 years ago. That need still exists. It's not going to go away. And it's not getting any better. It's just the nature of those buildings, where we're at with those buildings. So I think we told you last spring, we were going to do these renovations. We were going to pay for them with our permanent improvement dollars. However, we were pretty sure we were going to be back next spring for a bond issue to do something with our pre-K 3 facilities. So we've done a lot of talking, a lot of planning. Greta, myself, Dave, Jim Sagona, along with Mike Richley, Liz, Sam, Teresa Dunaway, did a lot of talking, came up with some different ideas, and we have landed on something that we believe is very fiscally responsible for this district. Is it going to be something that everybody loves? Nothing is. Is it going to be something everybody hates? Nothing is. I think it's going to have more likers of it, though, than dislikers of it. So, a couple terms to know as we go into this section. Terms to know. OFCC stands for the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission. You've probably heard us talk about them for a number of years. Talked about them last spring. They're still not one of my favorite organizations. However, they do dangle the money in front of you, and sometimes you got to play their game if that money is correct. So OFCC. Next one we call ELP. You're going to hear a lot more of that term, ELP, throughout tonight and moving forward. Stands for Expedited Local Partnership Program. We'll talk about that more as we move on. State Share Index, local share. What that means is what the state's going to kick in to co-fund your project. Local share is what we're responsible for. And then design manual standards. So if they're going to give us their money, we're going to have to follow their standards. And in those areas where we don't follow their standards, we pay 100% of the cost. So we can build with them, we can go with them, and we can still do our own thing in some areas, but we have to pay 100% of that cost, and they won't co-fund it. So benefits of OFCC, partial state co-funding. You can see we've seen rates anywhere from 25% up to 35% that they're going to co-fund for us. That number changes every single year. They look at the wealth of the district, and in September they come out with a new list to tell you what your state is going to get, or what your district is going to get. Hurdles to district wealth calculations. For years and years and years and years and years, OFCC says we are a very wealthy district. We should be bearing the brunt of most of these costs to build our schools. There have been districts throughout this state that have got over 90% to build new facilities. 90%. Can you imagine that? How nice would that be? The state comes in and says, we're going to give you 90%. Let's build. Sign me up. Okay? We've never been there. As you can see, our rates are typically 25, and that top number, 35%, is a new number, which we'll talk about here soon. With OFCC, it's always been a waiting game. You can't build until you get their money. That ELP program's been out there, but they kept telling us, well, you're too close to getting our OFCC money, so you can't take ELP money. But then they kept telling us, well, you're about 2 years away. Next year we'd meet with them, well, you're still 2 years away. We're thinking, geez, you know, give us a break, do something here, cut us some slack. And so they finally did. We'll talk about that here in a second. Hurdles, design manual standards. They're not bad standards. Not at all. They're probably pretty good standards for the most part. They want to ensure that if they're going to give us money, that our facility is going to last 50 to 60 years. They don't want to give us money and we just go and build whatever we want to build, some pole barn out back. They want to make sure it's going to last. But they have some standards that don't really fit into our Tipp city model. They expect you to put 25 kids in every single classroom, every single period of the day. That's never been a philosophy here in Tipp. We've always enjoyed having a smaller class size. Our community has voted for levies to keep our class sizes smaller. And so the state has always said, you're going to follow our standards. Your classroom is going to be this size. You're going to have at least 25 kids in it. Additional construction costs. Whenever you're building to different standards that might be outside what you normally would do, there's going to be additional cost. The waiting game of it, interest rates goes up, the cost of construction goes up, everything goes up. So you got additional costs as you're waiting to get OFCC dollars. And you use OFCC dollars, you also have to pass a levy. It's a $500,000 permanent improvement levy that you have to pass and keep it in place for 23 years to fund that building. If we go our own way, just say we're not going with the state, we don't have to do that. We already have a PI levy in place. Why do we have to pass another? But again, that's part of the state. Now, Expedited Local Partnership Program. As I said, it's been out there for a number of years. They've always told us, you don't qualify. Well, lo and behold, they came in this summer in July and said, hey, you're still a couple years away. We can't tell you when you're going to get classroom dollars. But now you can go with the ELP program. You now qualify to get our money. And at the same time, we found out the state share is now 35%. Not 31% as it was last year. Not 27% as it was the year before. Not 24% that I saw my first year in this position, but 35%. When you see a number of 35% that they're willing to fund you, you stop, you listen, you think, hey, this might be a good deal for us. Let's explore it. Let's see where this goes. So we're locked in now at this point where the state will co-fund 35% of our project. But again, that co-funding only applies to what meets the state design manual standards. So we just can't build a $50 million building, put in whatever we want, and think the state's going to co-fund 35% of it. They're just going to co-fund what meets their standards. Another benefit of ELP, we can move forward sooner. Why? because we pass a bond issue now, we do our construction now, and then when our number comes up from the state, then we get our funds back from the state. So we can build now, we don't have to wait for them. We build to their standards, for the most part, and then they co-fund us, and that money comes back to us. So we can move forward on our timeline, not waiting for them to tell us, hey, we think your money's going to be up next year, go pass a bond issue. So kind of a nice little benefit. So as far as the hurdles go, the District 12 calculation is no longer a hurdle, because they're telling us 35%. It's no longer a waiting game for our students, because we can move forward now knowing the state is going to fund us later when our number comes up. And I'm going to guesstimate our number would be up anywhere from 3 to 5 years, where we're sitting on that current funding list. Could be longer. I don't think it'd be much longer than that, though. There's still the design manual standards we got to follow, the additional cost, additional school levy is required. However, we don't have to pass that additional school levy till they give us money. And by that time, our building's built. So we can put the bond issue up, or that PI levy up for $500,000. If it doesn't pass, it doesn't pass. Okay? Now, we want to make sure we have the funding to manage our buildings and take care of them. That is important. But if we continue to manage it the way we've managed our PI fund, the way we've managed our capital improvement funds, it might be one of those things we just say, okay, we'll do it. May require 2 phases of implementation. This is where it gets a little tricky. So if we're going to take their money, their 35%, and we're going to renovate part of LT, which you'll see in a second, and add on to it, we've got to bring LT ball up to what the state standards are. Okay? We don't have to do it all at one time. So we can do part of it now, making sure that the way we're going to use LT ball is functional for us. And then when the state comes back and gives us our money, we can go back into LT ball and finish bringing it up to their standards. Is that correct, Mike? 100%. Okay. So kind of 2-phase project here. I'm throwing a lot at you, so if it's confusing to me too, and I'm trying my best to explain it. So our timeline, as I said, the state came to us in July. We applied and were accepted for the HELP program in August. We took a tour of the middle school with the OFCC representatives, because if we're going to renovate LT Ball, they've got to say, yes, you can do it, if we're going to use their money. And the reason for that is, in their standards, if the cost to renovate an existing building is 2/3 or more of what it would be to build a new building, they're going to say no. So we had to go through and we had to apply for a waiver for them to say, yes, we'll fund you on that building. So the caveat in all of this is the meeting for them to give us the 2/3 waiver is happening this week. So we have not heard back for sure whether or not we're going to get that 2/3 waiver. I think we're pretty confident that we will. In fact, probably 90% confident that we will. And it's one of those things as well. If they came back and said, no, you got to tear it down, I'd say go jump in a lake. That building was built in '74. That building's got a lot of life into it. It's a good building. And for them to come in and say, we're not going to help you renovate it, I'm out. Now, I'm one person. I'm not on the board. I'm not the superintendent. And they can tell me we're going to do it anyway. But I just don't, I'm not part of that ballgame. I'm pretty confident they're going to approve us. In September, last board meeting, our board adopted a resolution of intent to move forward to putting a PK5 building addition at the LT Ball site. They did this because in 2016, we tried to build a pre-K3 building at the Broadway site. And so they wanted to, and we wanted them to affirm that the direction we were going was to do something on this site. So the board did that in September. As I said, OFCC is meeting today. We have a meeting scheduled with them next Monday to hopefully get the positive, yes, we're moving forward, full steam ahead. Along with that, we have to develop a qualifying master's facilities plan to the OFCC. So basically, giving them something they say we need to give to them. I'm going to leave it at that. So, we talked about this a little bit last spring as well. Last spring, we showed you two different options for a potential addition onto LT Ball. The addition that we're not showing you right now was a wing on either the north side and the south side of the building. What we are showing you, I think, is the avenue that we kind of like as an administrative staff, sharing with our board. I think our board is kind of behind this idea as well. But what you're looking at, the red on either side of LT Ball is an addition. The back red on this side, nearest the playground, is the second gym that would get put onto LT Ball. And then the addition on this side is a two-story addition that will provide new classroom space for every kindergarten through 5th grade student in this district. So not just our K1, 2, and 3 kids, but new classroom spaces for our K5 kids. LT Ball, then current LT Ball, that space becomes sort of a shared services type of a building. So this slide, next few slides, I'm going to show you is kind of a reprogramming we're looking at for the interior of LT Ball of what those current spaces could turn into. And please understand, this is all conceptual. There have been no formal decisions, there have been no formal drawings, there's no blueprints, there's nothing other than what you're seeing here in the discussions we've had. We're confident with this plan, we like this plan, but again, it is all conceptual in nature. So, this, on the left-hand side, what you're seeing there, if you look at the right-hand picture, you'll see the red dots. This over here is that part of LT Ball. So the end closest to the middle school is that end. And what we're envisioning that becoming, it's hard to see. I'll get a little closer. Up at the top, you see an entrance to it. It's the primary student's entrance. So we're envisioning our K3, our K2 students, when their parents drop them off in the middle of the day, they have their own entrance for those kids. On the right-hand side is an office suite. Right now, that office suite is for classrooms in LT Ball. So we're looking at principal's office, secretary's office, reception area, guidance office, clinic. All that would serve our K3 kids. From a safety aspect, it also gives us a secure entrance on that side, so that yellow bubble right below the red arrow. Parents and students come in that door, they then get buzzed into the reception area. Once we verify they are who they say they are, and then they get buzzed out into the hallway. So it's a two-step process, providing more security, egress in and out of our buildings. On the left-hand side of the green, that is also 4 classrooms currently, and we are looking at putting our multi-handicap classes in those classrooms. So turning those into 2 larger classrooms. Those classrooms have higher needs than a regular classroom. They have restroom needs, they have changing table needs, storage needs for a lot of their supplies that those students require. So we see that as a perfect location to put those classrooms. Those classrooms both have separate entrances into them, so you don't have to go through one room to get to the other. The yellow on this side is a corridor that gets into this room, and then the other room you'd enter through the other corridor that's in white. So separate entrances, you're not closing through other rooms to get to it. So that's that part of the building. Again, that office suite would be for our primary kids. Their own clinic, their own offices, their own secure way into the building. Now we're on the other side of that same part of the building at LT Ball. You can see the red dots or red dashes around this area. The far side is what we're envisioning as our intermediate student entrance, or grade 3 through 5 kids. They come into school late after a doctor's appointment. They would come in that side, same secure entrance in, buzz into that vestibule, get buzzed into the secretary or receptionist's office, and then they get buzzed into the rest of the building. The top, next section next to it, you're going to see a staff dining room. You're going to see below it a professional development room. When we're bringing together staff members from 3 buildings, so approximately 75 staff members, needs are greater for PD, trying to get everybody on the same page. This gives us the ability to have space for that. And then there's also itinerary offices, so our OTs, our PTs, people that come in to work with our severe needs students, or just students that have other needs outside the regular classroom, they will have spaces as well. The orange on the left-hand side says table storage. Right now, that's our kitchen. Serves 400 kids, 380 kids a day right now. We put the 3 buildings together. We're going to have about 1,200 kids in the building. That current kitchen is not large enough to serve that. So we're looking at creating a table storage space in the current kitchen. And then you can see the dashed lines where we're at now in LT Ball. The big purple area that says kitchen, right now that's the administrative offices in LT Ball. So we've designed a kitchen that's going to be big enough to handle the student load throughout the day. Probably 3 times the size, 4 times the size of our current kitchen. Plenty of room there for storage. Create a separate kitchen service entrance as well for all deliveries. Still connected to what is the dining area at LT Ball, so it's still right in that same area. Just really very functional, makes a lot of sense. The rest of these spaces, let's start on the far left. The far left used to be the shop when LT Ball was the 7th and 8th grade building. So if you go in there now, there's a classroom in the front half. That green section is currently a classroom. And then most of the rest of that is a high bay ceiling storage space. Plenty big enough that we can take and put our pre-K kids in that section. They have their own part of the building. For those of you that have never been in a building with pre-K students before, it's kind of nice to be able to segregate them a little bit. They're their own kind of animal. They have their own kind of needs. So it's nice to be able to have them somewhat, I don't want to say away from the rest, but they just kind of operate on their own time frame and their own schedule. That requires us to put in a new entrance at that end of the building. So kind of right where the art room sits now, right to the left of the art room, would be a new main entrance in. So the pre-K kids would have their own entrance into the school. It'd be a secure vestibule entrance as well. Coming all the way down that corridor, that new entrance on the left, on the green, would be a computer lab we would create. On the right-hand side, you see 2 art rooms. There's currently an art room there right now. We have to shorten it a little bit to make room for that corridor, but we have room for the kiln, we have room for the storage. So we have 2 art rooms, and then we add an additional music room at the bottom of that screen, and we have an existing music room. So we're providing 2 music room spaces, we're providing 2 art room spaces, we're providing 2 gymnasiums for our pre-K through 5 students. Computer labs are saying, why only 1 computer lab for that many kids? Everything's mobile now. We have, how many carts do we have between LT, Nevin, and Broadway? Would you say, Jim?
17.
Currently we have 17 carts of Chromebooks throughout those 3 buildings, typically about 30 Chromebooks per cart. So everything's moving mobile. Teachers move those into their classrooms, out of their classrooms, share them. We're about a 2-to-1 ratio right now with our Chromebooks. So we don't see, and I think Mike would agree, Mr. Richley, our designer, would agree, most of the buildings being designed now don't have separate computer labs. So we like the idea of having one for a teaching lab, for kids to go down and get their keyboarding skills, other skills they need to have, but we don't think we need to have multiple computer labs throughout the building. All right. I didn't do too bad.
You started 5 minutes late.
Questions. I'm sorry, what?
You started 5 minutes late.
Okay, there we go. This has been all sit and get. I've been talking a lot. Other than Mr. Cody's question, you guys haven't had time to share your ideas, your thoughts. Again, everything I've presented is conceptual. There's been a lot of thought and a lot of planning that has gone on into those concepts, but we're not married to them. We're not locked in saying this is what it has to be. So if there's something you saw you don't like, you do like, you have other ideas, let us know. Yes, ma'am.
Question. Other than the number of students per classroom, is there anything in these new plans that are obvious no-nos with the funding?
Everything we're doing, the reprogramming, we had to submit tons of paperwork over the past couple of weeks to the state for them to even consider us for a waiver. So everything you've seen here has been submitted to the state. They have an idea of which direction we want to go. And I don't think there's been anything, Mike, that has come back from the state saying, no, you can't do that.
No, it's just a matter of who pays for it.
Yeah.
I think the question was more around design standards that the state has in place. Is there any standards other than classroom size that we are going to be responsible for funding 100%? Meaning we don't want to use their standard, we want to do something different than their standard. If I understood your question correctly.
Mike, thoughts on that?
We can't hear the question.
Okay. Other than the classroom sizes, classroom space sizes that the state requires, is there anything that we've just shown that we're going to be responsible for 100% of the cost, not being able to be co-funded?
The big one is the additional classroom space to meet your educational program will be the locally funded.
Sure.
That's really a big LFI will be your square footage. The core of the square footage is the academic program.
Sure. So, the state says for the number of students that we're going to be putting in that building, we should have approximately, that building's about 67,000 square feet. The addition that the state says we would need to cover our kids is about 67,000, 68,000 square feet. The planning we have done, we're looking at about a 77,000 square foot addition. So that extra 10,000 square feet, which would be all be classroom space, we would be responsible for 100% of that 10,000 square feet.
That's kind of what I was interested
Yes, I'm sorry, I misunderstood that. Mr. Cody.
Part of the OFCC, 5 years ago when we were going through this the first time, paid for demolition.
Yes.
They
Is
still
that-
co-fund that, yes, sir.
I saw a lot of dotted lines around Nevin and that stuff
Thank
over
you for bringing it
there.
up. Let me go back to that slide. Thank you for
Okay.
bringing that up.
And abatement of whatever you find when you tear that
Still
building down.
co-funded all of
The lead paint and the asbestos, that's all co-funded, right?
It is.
It is.
It is. Okay, so as Mr. Cody said, we got these red dashed lines up here. So at the bottom, that's our Nevin Coppic currently, where it sits. Where it says parking, kind of looks like a school bus as well. That is our current bus garage. And then this big rectangle over here are tennis courts. So, Nevin Coppic, if we're putting all our kids over there, Nevin Coppic needs to come down. We shouldn't be maintaining it, we shouldn't be funding it, shouldn't be paying to heat it, shouldn't be paying the electric on it. It probably needs to come down. So, Nevin Coppic would have to go away, which whatever that cost is, first to abate it and then to demolish it, the state co-funds 35% of that cost, we pay the remainder. The bus garage is going to need to be relocated. As you can see, it's right in the middle of where we're going to have more ingress, egress, more parking, as we're going to have all of our staffs from 4 of our buildings in that site. So the bus garage has to be relocated. And I think right now, kind of our preliminary talk is we're looking at potentially putting the bus garage up on Don Davis, on that property we bought that backs up to our current practice fields at the high school. We own 8 acres there. I don't anticipate it taking all 8 acres, but we look at that as a potential location for our bus garage. And then the tennis courts, right in the middle of the driveway as well, those need to be relocated as well. In working with the high school administration and the athletic director, we're envisioning moving our tennis courts to the high school and putting them on the current practice fields where one of the soccer practice fields currently sits. Since the stadium has been resurfaced this year with turf, typically on practice days, if boys have a game, girls don't. So girls are typically going down to the stadium to practice when boys don't have a game, and vice versa. So we're doing a lot of our soccer practicing down at the stadium, so we don't see the need to have 2 soccer practice fields at the high school anymore, and we think our tennis courts can fit in that area. Those are not co-funded. Moving the tennis courts, moving the bus garage
Right,
are
that
not
makes sense.
co-funded.
So second part of my question, what are you going to do with Broadway?
I'm going to let Loretta take that question.
All right, well, I'll start with, first, we were talking about the demolition and the abatement, but the other piece is, before we talked about swing space, when we were talking earlier, and that's an important piece. In this particular plan, we would be able to have our students for a significant period of time, particularly at Broadway. They'll be able to stay there for the entire time that we're making our construction. At Nevin, we will have to look at that, as well as when we start to do the renovation inside LT Ball, how that impacts. But our swing space time will be significantly different than what it was before. And that's a very expensive piece, and the state does not pay for swing space. For Broadway, ultimately, we would see at this time our students staying there at Broadway during the construction period, and then following the construction period, then we would look at it. Right now, it'd be a demolition, and it'd be an abatement, and then it would be a green space, and we would decide from there what we would do with the green space. If, after we were actually very active and had our students there, and we're ready to transfer them over, and our staff, if we had someone in the community that stepped up and said, I have a great idea for this and I would like to pay the school district for that, certainly we would be open to that. But we do have to we've looked at the ability to maintain that particular building with its age, and I'm sure any owner or new owner would have to look at the same thing. So it wouldn't be something we see it as a valuable piece. It's not something that we'd be willing to give away as a district, because it has wonderful potential for this community, but we also do not take it lightly. We want that to be a great space. It has been a very historical place for our district, so there's some discussion and thought, and thankfully some time before we have to really make a full decision on that.
If I may add to that, I mean, one of the things we may do upon getting the bond issue passed is put together a committee, a group, to do a study on what options that building may have, or what that property options may have that we could study during the time of the building process. So I really don't believe we have a plan for that building site right now. Obviously, we will have to have a plan at some point to do something with that space, but I don't think we're ready to tell you exactly what's going to happen to that space.
Plan for what to do with that space won't be known before a bond levy comes up next month.
There's a possibility that it won't be, what we're going to do. I mean, we would bring a committee together and study that and figure out what we want to do. If we get that done before the May, we're so far into this process right now, trying to get just all our plans together to be able to come to you with a bond issue. I don't think we'd be ready to tell you where we were going with Broadway site.
Yeah, and the other thing relative to Broadway site, I didn't hear anything in here about what you're going to do with the latchkey kids that are currently over at Central.
One thing to understand
if that space goes
yeah.
away 5 years from now, where does that go?
Sure. When we went through this 3 years ago, we worked closely with the T7 Community Services on that situation. And at that point in time, they actively reached out to different community organizations, community churches. And at that point in time, if our bond issue would have been passed successfully, their plan was to move into, I believe, the Lutheran church in town on Main Street. So they had reached out trying to make sure they had a place to go. One thing to keep in mind is that that's a separate entity from us. So not everybody understands that, though.
Yeah, I recognize they're a separate entity, but they're using a community asset, and if they're taking care of themselves, that's the answer to my question,
Yes.
is that you're talking to them, they're taking care of it.
Yes. They've been brought into this discussion. Then, and about 6 months ago, we sat down with them and said, this is the direction we're going. We want to give you a heads up so that you know it's not tomorrow, it's not 6 months from now, but it's probably 2 or 3 years down the road, you're going to have a location.
If you don't mind, I might add, last time around, that situation was really dramatic because we had to demolish what was there before we could build new. So
Right.
this is kind of inverse in that, like the Broadway site, there could be a period of years after bond issues passed to determine what their future is. Much different than last time around, which was like,
Yeah, you have 6 months,
yeah,
pretty much.
that's
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Wondering about the drop-off pickup of the grade school kids.
Yes.
Is that still going to be on West Edge, or is that going?
No, it is not going to be on West
Because
Edge.
that's pretty unsafe. Been kind of.
Been there for a long time, and it makes no sense, and we're getting away from that. So if you look at this drawing, you see the school buses on the north side. We actually talked through this today in our meeting before, as we're planning for this tonight. In the morning and in the afternoon on bus drop-off and bus pickup, we're going to have our buses on one side of the building, our kids on the other side of the building. During the day, when we're not having buses actively moving, we're going to have an opening on one side for primary kids, opening on the other side for intermediate kids. And if you notice, West Edge is not on that drawing. It's nowhere to be seen on that drawing. We're getting off of West Edge.
I think you left one part out. One side of the building will be for buses and one side
I think I said that.
for cars.
I think I said that.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, how far is that parking lot going down? That's on the south side of LT Ball?
The bottom part?
Yeah.
Yes. So you
How
can
far
see
is
where
that?
Nevin Coppock currently sits in that red dashed area. That driveway right there is currently a driveway into the Nevin Coppock parking lot. And then, so if you can see, and again, it's a conceptual drawing of a parking lot. You can see how it kind of lines up with the backside of where Nevin Coppock currently sits.
Because my house sits right on the back edge. I can look straight out. And I was just wondering if I was going to have a building I was looking at back there, or if it was going to be parking lot, or if it's going to stay green. It looks like it's going to be half and half.
Probably, yes. Probably not be a building, but probably greenish
Green,
and parking
will
spot.
the fencing be the same?
Something we're going to have to discuss as we move down into this. Yeah, certainly. We want to be a good neighbor. We don't think we're a good neighbor now with the way West Edge is. Unfortunately, it's been that way as far as I know. But it'd be great to be able to get away from that. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a projected timeline, like when this be realistic?
Well, if you ask mine, it's going to tell you that I'm whipping him saying, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. His original timeline was, if we pass in May, it's a 3-year process. I said, Michael's like, I want 2 years. So we think we can fast track it. We think if all goes to plan, if we can pass in May, and we can get our drawings, our bid specs out to bid, we think we can move it along and be ready to open. So if we pass it in May of 19, be ready to get everybody in this fall of 21. So a 2-year process. And as somebody that has to take care of Broadway and Nevin, I'd like to be able to move in next year.
You're gonna have a few more sleepless nights.
Definitely, you and I both will.
I saw it, red.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, question, sir. So LT Ball, digging into the details and the programmatic layout a little bit. You've got the shared use spaces with an increase in kids by a significant number. I guess, is that increasing in size proportional? I guess the number of kids are increasing from about 400, you said, to 1,200?
About 1181 is what the state's projecting. It's almost 1,200, yes.
And it's 400 now?
Give or take.
How's the use of those spaces for those kids during the day? Do they get to use the space as much as they would now, or?
I think so, yes. I think if you go through, I'm not sure if you went to LT Ball or not.
No.
I think there's 67,000 square feet of space in there, of which maybe 35 of it gets used 100% of the time. The other part of it is used, maybe there's a class here or a class there in music or art or in lunch for an hour and a half. A lot of that space isn't well used, isn't well thought out. So I think by adding the extra gymnasium adding the extra art room, adding the extra music room. We've done a study of our cafeteria layout, and we're comfortable we can get our kids seated and have appropriate lunches in that space as well. We're comfortable that space will be sufficient for our kids.
One follow-on question.
Yes, sir.
too. So you have the smaller kids kind of towards the north, but it's a little bit farther from the playgrounds. Is there any, I guess, concern with having those kids who use that more often closer to that?
Well, I guess we're putting all of the, so it's a two-story addition, which is the red section. And I guess we were kind of envisioning probably K1 and 2 on the lower floor, 3, 4, and 5 on the second floor. So all the kids are pretty much going to be the same distance from the playground. The nice thing is that the playground is close to the cafeteria, which most recesses are around lunchtime. We know the little ones do have extra morning recesses and afternoon recesses. So is it a little bit further to travel? Yeah, maybe a little bit. I don't think it's something that's going to be, let's pack up, let's get out to recess. By the time we get out there, we got to turn around and come back in.
I think the concern more for me with that would be, I went to school that was K through 6 in one building, and it was fine, it was great. However, the potential for bullying and
Sure.
things like that, with
Sure.
having, kindergartners out with 6th graders, it happens sometimes.
Sure.
And I mean, we hope that that never happens, you don't want to,
Certainly.
anticipate that for sure, but.
Yeah, I would say we have very good administrators in our buildings, and I'm confident that they would build schedules so that if the kids might happen to be out there at the same time, there'd be separate areas for them. My guess is they would not be out there at the same time 95% of the time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we have great teachers that are always out there too. Not to say it doesn't happen, because it does happen. It happens at the same grade level with grade level. But I think that 6th grade to 1st grade, I don't think would be an issue. You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Do you have any estimates on what this is going to cost, and the share business and all that?
We're working through those numbers. Our goal is to stay below 5 mils on a levy. Our goal is to keep the levy term around 27 years. The last bond issue we did, we asked for 37 years, and we heard loud and clear, we don't want a 37-year loan. So we're trying to keep the bond millage down. We're looking at trying very hard to keep the cost of this project below $32 million is our goal.
That's total, so
Total.
in theory, 30-some% would be state funded, and
In theory, 35% gets state funded, other than those 10,000 square feet we talked about. So it wouldn't all be co-funded, but
so you're talking about 20-ish million for the community to come up with, that kind of number.
yeah. Yep. And if you remember back in 2016, maybe you don't remember if you weren't here or weren't aware, when we did try to pass that bond issue, it was a K3 building, and at that point it was just under 30 million. So now we're looking at being able to take care of our K5 kids for about 32 million, moving a bus garage, moving tennis courts, and having our 6-8 building taken care of, without having to come back later on and say, hey, now we got to do this. We've been trying very hard to be fiscally responsible. We understand we live in a very conservative community and money is tight. And we understand you want us to make everything last as long as possible. And we're going to do our best to do that without charging you more than we need to. I'm a taxpayer too, so I don't want to pay too much either.
Security is going to continue to be a big issue.
Yes.
And I think it should be part of your sales pitch.
Yes, I agree.
And you should talk about security here at the high school, and because I don't think it's going to go away. So,
I would agree. And we'll only continue to grow. So, great, thank you. Heather?
I didn't see anything about a media center library. Was that in there?
It is. We're looking at keeping the same media center and library space there.
Then pre-K, fine, so
Yes.
everyone's going to use the same?
Yes. Now, we are looking at, I don't think I have it. In fact, I know I don't have a slide. So where the current computer lab sits now, there's a classroom on the other side of that. It's about 1,400 square feet. We're looking at turning that into a literacy center for the book rooms. Where teachers can go and plan together, come up with different projects as well. But the media center itself would be where the current computers sit up through the stage.
And my other question, to music, to PE, is that, are we absorbing positions then? Teaching
That would
positions?
probably be the situation, yes. Right now, there's 3 music, there's 3 art, there's 3 PE. If you only have 2 classrooms, and there's my principal mind going that when I was a principal and looking at how the scheduling works, and being married to a special areas teacher, I'm pretty confident we can schedule them all into those 2 classrooms. So yes, there will probably be some positions that we're going to have to go away. And that includes administrative, that includes custodial, that includes food service. So there will be some operational savings with this as we move forward as well too. When I was a principal at Miami East, back when I had not this color hair, I was at the Miami East North building, which was in Fletcher, Ohio. At that time it was a K4 building. And they started there down the road of building a K8 building. So there was 4 of us that were principals at the elementary and junior high, and we were told, we're only keeping 2 of you. I was low man on the totem pole, so I saw the writing on the wall, it's time to find a new job. So unfortunately, when you go into building projects where you do combine buildings, there's going to be some services, some positions that do get combined. I can tell you that the music position is going to take care of itself. Yes, so that won't be an issue. Yes, sir.
This makes a lot of sense. What's the next step to move forward?
I think we have a slide that says next step. Thank you.
Going the wrong way.
Am I?
Yep.
Thank you.
That's for the eyes.
Okay, moving forward. A, we want to make sure the financial stability of our current facilities, our technology needs, our transportation needs continue to be taken care of through our permanent improvement levy. As you know, hopefully you know, our permanent improvement levy is on the ballot next month, November 6th. We're looking to make it a continuing renewal. Our PI levy's been in place for 50 years. Every 5 years we've come back and asked you to renew it. We've shown you what you've done. And except for all of one time, it's always been renewed. We think we've had a great story to tell as far as what we've done to these 2 buildings and how we're going to pay for it with our PI levy. We understand that we're on the ballot a lot, whether it's for a renewal, additional money. We understand there's levy fatigue. So we're really looking at trying to get this PI levy made a continuing levy. And what that means is that if it passes here in November, we don't have to ask you to renew it every 5 years. It'll stay at the current 2 mills. The effective millage is about 1.68 mills. It'll continue on. So step A is we need that levy to pass. Step B, complete our OFCC Master Facilities Plan documentation for approval by the Commission at an upcoming meeting. We are actively engaged in that, and that is moving forward. C, continue this, but only next time fill this room so that we can get the word out and that we can get people understanding where we need to go, where this district needs to go, and how we're going to fiscally responsibly do it. Step D, which depends on step A above. Step D, prepare a bond levy question to place on an upcoming ballot, hopefully May of 2019, which means we're going to need as much help as we can get. We're going to need the volunteers from this community who believe in this plan, who believe in our kids, who believe in our teachers, to come out and say, we need this. You know, it's kind of, I can be blunt at times, but I won't curse. It's kind of unbelievable that in this day and age, that we still have teachers and students that have to go to school for 6-7 hours a day in a 95-degree classroom. How many of you would go to work 7 hours a day and you had to be in a 95-degree office? But yet we expect our kids to do that. We expect them then to be actively engaged in learning. Heck, they're just actively engaged trying to cool off. The teachers are trying to adjust their fans to get them some life into them. This is something this community needs. It's not a want. It is a need, and it's been a need, and it's going to continue to be a need until we do this for our community. Those buildings have served us greatly. Broadway for over 60 years, or Nevin for over 65 years. Broadway, almost just as long. They've served us greatly. It's a different day and age now. Academic needs, classroom needs are so different than they were 60, 50 years ago. So hopefully you understand where we're going. You're going to hear more from us as we get through this next levy. Hopefully we get a successful pass on November 6th. And then starting in January, you're going to be seeing a lot of us coming to you. Whether it's here where we have engagement, whether it's out at the Rotary, whether it's at the Optimist Club, whether it's at churches, wherever we can go, we're going to engage with you because we need you to make this happen. All right, I'm now 25 minutes past my time limit. At this point, we're going to have tours of the building. If you've not been in and you want to see what we've done, hopefully Mr. Southers is in here. Mr. Southers is the principal of this building. We're glad to take anybody through it that wants to go through it. Stick around, meet him down on one part of the floor. Other than that, Greta, anything you want to close with?
No, I just want to say I really appreciate you being here tonight. I appreciate your engagement with questions and spread the word. We're excited about this. This is an exciting time for our district. It's great to see, to me, it is. It's metamorphosis. It's a real change with what we're seeing with the buildings that we presently have, such as the middle school, and then just the opportunities now for our pre-K through third grade, all the way up through fifth grade. So I think we feel strongly that we have a plan, we have a direction, and we are ready to pursue it. So excited to do that with you. Thank you for coming. Yeah.
Right.